The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
Reb Shlomo Carlebach told this story in his hesped for the Lubavitcher Rebbe Zatzal. For those of you who don't know, Reb Shlomo Carlebach I'm not a historian, for about 2, 3, 4 years was actually very much connected to Chabad. He worked in Crown Heights, he was a Chabad chassid. And then there was some type of fallout. I don't know exactly what it was, but there was some type of fallout. But Shlomo Carlebach for a few years spent most of his waking hours at 770 by the Rebbe. And he describes in his hesped for the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he describes that he would leave the Rebbe's area where he was being mekarev and was talking to people, usually about 2, 3 in the morning. Sometimes he said he would just sleep in his car. Sometimes he would drive home. Many times he said he didn't have a car and he would take a subway. Now at the same time, Shlomo Carlebach had taken upon himself the following Kabbalah. He had taken upon himself that he would never go into a subway car and sit by himself. If there was anybody there, Jew or Gentile, he was going to greet them and say hello and greet them with a warm smile. So he said one night he's leaving 770 and it's 3 in the morning or so. And he's going to the subway. He hasn't slept since 5 or 6. And he's praying that the subway car is going to be empty. He's on his way back to the Upper West Side. And he walks into the subway car. Sure enough, it's empty. First stop, someone gets on. He opens his eye. He says to himself, a Kabbalah is a Kabbalah. He goes over to the fellow and he says to him hello. He says, what's your name? He says, it's David Silberberg. Okay. Name is fictitious. He says, oh, nice to meet you. My name is Shlomo Carlebach. He says, David, you're out quite late at night. What's going on? He said, David says to him, it's the night of my life. He said, I just got engaged. Shlomo jumps up, in middle of vision this, in middle of a subway car, 3:02 in the morning, Shlomo Carlebach is dancing a Masher Bara. After he finishes dancing, he says, what's the name of the bride? The guy says, Susie O'Donnell. Shlomo's face falls. Shlomo thinks fast. Shlomo says to him, Mazel tov, Mazel tov. You should know, we Hasidim, we have a tradition that we bring ourselves to the Rebbe, to our grand rabbi for a blessing before we get married. For Hasidim, it's special to go to the Rebbe. So he says, I want to take you now to my Rebbe, to my grand rabbi. So Shlomo Carlebach describes, they go to the other side of the subway, back to Crown Heights. They come to the Rebbe's study. Now, the Reb Shlomo was saying all this to bring out the godless of the Rebbe, as you're going to see in a moment. He said, we come to the Rebbe's study, it's now 3:45. The Rebbe's still in there with Hasidim, and everything is vibrant. He says he sticks his head into the office and he says to the Rebbe in one sentence, I'll say in the Yiddish the way Reb Shlomo said, I don't know the way he said it, but he said in Yiddish, he said to dem Yid geht zum Chasna Zayin mit Agoya, and that was it. He said, this Jew is supposed to marry a Gentile. And he ushers him in. This is my grand rabbi, Menachem Mendel Schneerson. And David comes in. Reb Shlomo said he sat outside. It's now 3:45 in the morning. He said he sat outside for 3 hours, 6:45. He said, David, and there's Yechidus, the Rebbe and David. He says, when David comes out, there are tears flowing down his face. And Reb Shlomo just concludes the story. And he says, and now, David is a Chashuv Lubavitcher Shliach. Now, what Reb Shlomo wanted to say was the power of the Rebbe. He said, I have no idea what took place in those 3 hours. David never said what exactly happened in the 3 hours, but that was the koch of the Rebbe Zichron Livracha to change someone's life.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org